Okay, so thank you for clicking on this video. Today we are going to review the legendary Doug Hepburn Program A, but I'm also going to review the Program B. Now, Doug Hepburn is one of the OG strength athletes, one of the first to squat over 600, bench over 300 pounds. He competed in the British Empire 1953 games and did very well. So he really is very important in the strength industry. So I'm looking forward to analysing this program. So let's get started and start looking at it. So the first thing you must do is go to this sheet right here, and on this sheet you must, let me just put my phone on silent, you must put your 1 rep maxes for the squat, the bench, the deadlift, the overhead press and the barbell row. So do make sure that you also put in for the overhead press and the barbell row, because this is considered a key lift in this program, a main lift. So once you've done that, you only need to put it in the left column, which is called the power phase. You don't need to put it in the pump phase. We'll talk more about that later. Because as you can see, if I put it in this cell right here, it automatically updates in the other cell. Next thing you need to do is choose whether you're going to do this program in kilograms or pounds. If you're going to do this program in kilograms, you put 2.5. If you're going to do it in pounds, you put 5. Quite simple, really, not too difficult. So now the hard part's done. Let's go to Program A and start reviewing Program A. Now, I consider Program A to be more of a power building program rather than a powerlifting program. So let's have a look at the power phase. So each program has what he calls a power phase and a pump phase. The power phase is more about building strength and power. The pump phase is more about hypertrophy and creating some muscle mass. So let's look at the power phase first. Okay, so we can see from this table I created here, we are training from week 1 to week 3. We're doing a training frequency of 4 days a week, and we're squatting, we're benching, we're overhead, we're deadlifting twice a week. So you can see that here. Week 4, we do slightly more work. Okay, we train for a total of 6 days, and we train all the lifts 3 times a week. Now, I'm not sure if this was how the program was originally intended, but this is how I do it and how I have done it in the past. And I had no problem with week 4 being quite an intense week, and I'll talk about why later. So I basically split it into what I call part 1 and part 2. Now, part 1 is your sets of 2, part 2 is your sets of 3. So as you can see here in this column right here, this row, sorry, this is where we do our sets of 2. And if you look at this table right here, you can see we are doing sets of 2 on these days right here. You can see every day, with exception to day 5, day 6 on week 4, we are doing sets of 2. So let's see a pattern. Let's see if we can find a pattern. So we start on 8 sets of 2, day 1, day 2, week 1. And then day 3, day 4 on week 1, we do 7 sets of 2. So what you can see here is every training session, we reduce the number of sets by 1. And you can see we're going 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way to the last day of the week, day 5, day 6, where we are no longer doing any sets of 2. We're just doing part 2, sets of 3. Now let's have a look at part 2. Now we can see over in this table right here, we are not doing any sets of 3 on day 1, day 2, Monday, but the rest of the program you are. So we start with 0 sets of 3, day 1, day 2, week 1, and then we add 1 set each training session. So we can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until we reach 8 sets of 3. And that's where you finish and max out the program. So you can see we started at 8 sets of 2 and we finished the program on 8 sets of 3. So there's definitely been a strength adaptation during this 4-week process, because we were only able to handle the weight for 8 sets of 2, week 1, day 1, day 2, but by the end of the program, we're doing the same weight for 8 sets of 3. So let's talk about the percentage of intensity we'll be using. So with this program, in the power phase, this phase, we are doing 80% of our 1 rep max for every set, both part 1, both part 2, sets of 2, sets of 3, you're always doing 80%. Now for the pump phase, you're doing less intensity but higher volume. You're doing 60% of your 1 rep max. So slightly less intensity but slightly more reps. Now I've said you should take anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes between each each set, just to give yourself enough time to rest. Okay, after you finish this 4-week program, you could either maybe move on to program B, or alternatively you could just rerun this program again. But what you must do is add anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds to all your 1 rep maxes. So that's 2.5 to 5 kilograms, and then either go to program B or redo this program again. So the pump phase is slightly more simple, I think. Okay, you got again this sort of part 1, part 2 concept. Part 1 is sets of 6, part 2 is sets of 7. So we start here. I've done a table down here. You can see we are doing day 1, day 2. We are just doing sets of 6. We do 3 sets of 6. And then day 3, day 4, you can see we are starting to do sets of 7. We do 1 set of 7. So let's look for a pattern here and analyze the logical progression of this pump phase. So we start with 3 sets of 6. Let's look at part 1 first. And then every session we reduce the number of sets by 1. So we go 3 sets of 6, 2 sets of 6, and then 1 set of 6. And then when we reach week 2, day 3, day 4, we have stopped doing sets of 6. We finished that. And then when we come to week 3, day 1, day 2, we start doing sets of 8. And instead of reducing the number of sets we do, we're increasing it this time. So you can see 1 set of 8, 2 sets of 8, and then we max out at 3 sets of 8. Part 2 is pretty similar. We start with doing no sets of 7, day 1, day 2, week 1, and then we add 1 set each training session until we max out at 3 sets of 8. Once we reach 3 sets of 8 on week 2, day 3, day 4, we start going back down. So you get 2 sets of 7, 1 set of 7, 0 sets, 7, and then you're done. So that's that program covered, and you can see here, this is the actual sheet, the actual sheets. You can follow this sheet, but I did notice there was a few errors on this sheet. So what I will do is upload this program where you can actually use my tables instead, and I'll put a column here. This column you can put your percentage of 1 rep max. I'll make sure that I'll do that for you, but you can use these sheets if you want. You can also see that he suggests that you can do an optional rows, chin-ups, or weighted dips if you would like to. How many reps is up to you, but probably 3 sets of 5, 3 sets to 6, 3 sets of 8, but not too much volume, not too much intensity. So let's go to program B. So program B is what I call the power and strength program. Okay, you do the pump phase at 60% of your 1 rep max and the power phase at 90% of your 1 rep max. So it's not the same as the previous one. After you've finished the program, the 7-week program, whatever, I'll just say 7-week there, you add 5 to 10 pounds to your 1 rep max and then restart again. But you do not combine the power and the pump phase together. So in program A, you run the 2 together simultaneously. So you would do your power phase first when you start the workout, and then you take maybe a 15-minute rest and then start your pump phase training. But with this program B, you don't do that. You start with your power phase, you run that, and then you do your pump phase. So the training, just like with program A, we're going to do day 1, day 2, Monday, Tuesday. We're going to do day 3, day 4. We're going to do Thursday, Friday. Pretty simple. So let's have a look at the power phase. It's actually pretty straightforward. This won't take long to explain. We're basically doing heavy singles at max effort, so over 90% of our 1 rep max. We start with 5 sets of 1, and then each training session we add 1 set. So you can see we're doing 6 sets, 7 sets, and then we max out 8 sets of 1 at 90% of our 1 rep max. And then we begin the pump phase. Okay, the pump phase runs for about 7 weeks, so it's not exactly a short program. Now let's have a look at the logic. Now it's the same as the previous one. We got a sort of part 1 and a part 2 of each training session. So the part 1 here, let's analyze part 1. So we start with 6 sets of 3. Okay, day 1, day 2, week 1. And as you can see, each training session we're reducing the number of sets by 1 until we reach week 4, day 1, day 2, where we no longer do any sets of 3. We've stopped doing that. Instead, come to day 3, day 4, on week 4, we start doing sets of 4. But we start with 5 sets of 4, and then we slowly reduce the number of sets. We then reduce the number of sets each training session, 4 sets of 4, 3 sets of 4, 2, 1, until we've reached week 7 where we no longer do sets of 4. So we start with sets of 3 and we finish with sets of 4. So as you can see here, we started with 6 sets of 3 and we finished with 0 sets of 4. Let's have a look at part 2. So part 2, we're doing sets of 4. For this one, we start with day 1, day 2. We do no sets of 4. You can see here, we're not doing anything. We're only doing sets of 3, 6 sets of 3. And then we add 1 set each training session until we max out at 6 sets of 4. Once you reach that, which is on week 4, this is kind of what I call the reset week. We then start doing sets of 5. So you can see week 4, day 3, day 4, we do 1 set of 5, 2 sets of 5, 3 sets, 4, 5, until we reach 6 sets of 5. So we started doing sets 4 and we finish doing sets of 5, 6 sets of 5. So obviously you can tell by me just explaining this pump phase is a little bit more complicated than the program A. However, I like this program. I have run the program B many times and had a lot of success with it, but I also threw in some of my own stuff in it. And again, if we look at the actual program, you can see that he's recommended that you can do optional rows, chin-ups and dips each training session, up to you. So that's the program. Okay, what I will do is, as I said earlier, I will add a column into my tables where you can put in the weight that you're going to lift that session, because I did notice with some of these sheets they're a little bit complicated and there are some errors. So anyway, that's my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my website. You can download this template from my website. I've got the link below in the description. You can also check out my Instagram, follow me there. I do lots of powerlifting stuff. You might want to check that out. If you want, you can sign up to be a patron of my channel. I release exclusive content on there before I do YouTube. And you can also get some voting rights and suggestions on what I could review next. Also, I offer private coaching, and I do have my own programs on my website for free. Some of them just pay a small price, not very expensive, and you can access them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep lifting, stay strong, and as always, never give up on your goals.